Hello, and thank you for being here. These videos, I'm going to just further articulate the information in each PDF just to make sure that you have a better understanding of what it is that we're trying to introduce to you. And in this one, it's with dopamine and food. So very, very hyperpalatable foods. And these hyperpalatable foods are based on the ingredients in them. So for instance, if you consume a potato that has one ingredient, just potato. On the chemical side, of course, it has a bunch of other stuff. But it has technically one ingredient, as in the classification that this is a potato and only contains what a potato contains. If you look at a bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos, you're looking at a super palatable food. And this is your dopamine. Now, what happens here is a lot of people get stuck on these dopamine spikes. So if that's a bag of Cheetos the first time you eat it, maybe this is going to be the dopamine spike of a bag of Cheetos the second time you eat it, third time you eat it, fourth time you eat it, and so forth. So as you consume these hyperpalatable foods in time, you will eventually not receive the same response from these hyperpalatable foods. So what happens here is that your dopamine spike, you don't get it anymore from the things that you are originally consuming. So what happens when you're consuming these hyperpalatable foods? So like the Dorito effect in this case, like reward systems between food and obesity. Now, if I were, this is just me in general, like I would literally eat a bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos a day. There was no one serving weigh out your bag of Flamin' Hot Cheetos. It was the entire bag or nothing. So as our dopamine goes lower with these foods, we have to increase the amount of food that we're actually consuming. So this is where at first you might get your hunger signals turned off and you're going to consume that whole bag. Like potatoes, for instance, have a very high satiety signal. A lot of these other foods don't have any satiety signals at all. So you just consume the whole tub of ice cream, you can consume the whole bag of chips. It's very normal. That's why your Lay's chips are just potato, salt, and oil. Quite hyperpalatable. So what we're paying attention to here is the foods we consume and the dopamine feedback loop that's created. Now, I'm going to tell you from firsthand experience, it took me more than 6 months to stop being addicted to some of the foods that I would consume. Even knowing that these foods were bad for me, I still consumed them because my dopamine was off the chart. I had problems with addictions, it ran in the family, and at the point in time, I was not avidly meditating, which we'll introduce you down below. There's meditation with impulsive behaviors, dopamine, time, and human impulsivity. They're all interconnected. Like you eat a whole bag of chips and you're like, whoa, I'm already out of the chips. Where did time go? Time flies when you're having fun, and it's necessarily, it's more fun to eat a very excitable meal than it is to eat something extremely boring. So when you're looking at a potato, it's not really going to spike your dopamine very much. Most of the general meals you consume are not going to give you a reward system that gets set up. And with all of your other bad foods, so a bad food, what that's going to do is that's going to hit your reward systems, and then you're going to thus want more bad food. So it's going to create a feedback loop of continually consuming hyperpalatable foods, triggering your reward systems, and then, as we explained previously, consuming more of those foods to just give yourself more of a reward. This is where people that start drugs eventually overdose on drugs. It's a similar pathway. There's a book called The Taste That Kills. There's even things I've seen where they try to mimic the cocaine pathway in your brain, which is very unfortunate and doesn't really make any sense. So all I want you to understand on this research paper is hyper palatable foods. If they have a ton of ingredients, so let's say it has 34 ingredients in it, that is going to spike your dopamine most likely, and that's the way that it's designed. You can look at cheesecake from a place that sells cheesecake. It's a restaurant that sells cheesecake, so you can look at the number of ingredients in that cheesecake. That is definitely going to spike your dopamine, definitely trigger your reward systems, and definitely not be good for the gut microbiome. And that's the one big thing that I'm trying to get across here with this diet being not just food information. Like if we knew that we were consuming something, like here's how you really want to classify this out. If you start with a decision and you can consume a potato, one ingredient, one possible interaction, one thing's going to happen. more than one thing's going to happen, but one possible outcome off of that one ingredient that we consumed. If you look at most foods that we consume nowadays, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 6, 7, 8, 9, 30, 21, 22, 23, 24, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 40, 41, 42. Some foods have 42 different ingredients in them, and even more than that. Now imagine if you were to try to calculate the direction of your life. Do you think it would be easier to calculate the direction of your life knowing the foods and ingredients that you're consuming and what they actually do to you, or consuming something that is extremely hyper palatable and only designed to kick in your reward pathways and they don't actually taste good? Like if you break down each individual ingredient in here, and they do break down in your body different ways, shapes, and forms, then that's something that we'll talk about. But just imagine that you're consuming all of these different ingredients and your body processes them, all of them, at a different rate. So this is where it's going to taste really good at first. It's going to interact with your gut microbiome. Most likely it has bad ingredients in it. And then not only are those bad ingredients affecting the gut, but you're going to have really high levels of certain things in your body which are not good. So this is where we notice a lot of the older generation is suffering from a lot of diseases and illnesses that we can prevent with diet and lifestyle. So the only thing I wanted you to take away from this is, are these real foods, or are they just extremely well designed in a laboratory to boost your dopamine to make you really like them, so when you see them on the shelf, you salivate for them? And I've salivated for Flamin' Hot Cheetos. I can even tell you today, when I went to the store, I looked at a bag and I'm like, those things are good. But I know not to do that anymore. So, Dopamine Time and Human Impulsivity is a very good research paper. We're going to introduce that to you when we go over the meditation. I just wanted you to better understand dopamine and food. And the easiest way to solve this problem is to pay attention to the ingredients that you're consuming in foods. And that's where the 50 Brain Cell Challenge comes into play. Reducing the number of ingredients you consume, reducing the number of actions and reactions that are happening in your body based on the chemical cocktails that you would be consuming. And this is just stuff that I've studied for years and personally have tested for years. Like I used to wake up and consume a tub of ice cream and eat a bag of Cheetos and smoke weed and then do nothing that I was teaching you to do in here, just to see if, like, how long it would take before I truly felt depressed and sad, and there were days where I almost felt like I couldn't fix it. It was scary, but I did it to make sure that the things that I introduced to other people actually work. And the only reason they don't work is because you didn't listen to the things. And it's normal, it takes time. You're not magically going to be able to control your mind. Mind your gut and you keep your mind, and that's part of re-inoculating the gut microbiome health and not having these cravings for unhealthy foods. The cravings will go away. You will never want to consume them ever again. And after a long time, your palate changes with the foods that you enjoy. So when you go back and consume those foods that you used to consume, they're going to taste like poison. I can tell you that I know people that don't want to consume them because they actually tell me that they taste like poison. They're like, how do you eat that? That tastes like poison. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'm here just to show you some research papers, let you know about something that I didn't know. I didn't understand that consuming these foods was a hyperpalatable food, and the only reason I was creating a cycle of desire and repeating this was some sort of dopamine feedback loop where these foods hijack my brain, and I'm not even eating them because they're good. I'm just eating them because I have a need for a dopamine spike, and then I'm being manipulated by the foods that I consume. So thank you for watching this video. There will be many more, and as always, if you need anything, feel free to reach out and have a conversation. Enjoy the rest of the PDFs, and thank you for being here. As always, I spent a lot of alone time and got rid of everything in my life to be able to create this for you, so see you in the next video.